Well, good morning and welcome to another episode. Today we're digging into the LS here, Smokey. I got myself a bit of a drift hangover. Normally after a 2-day event you're feeling a bit sore, sorry and tired for yourself. But also in this case I've got a bit of a broken motor additive to that mix. So we thought it was just head gasket originally, but now it looks like it's also going to be an issue with the pistons, because if you look closely on this one, in the top left corner, there's a bit of broken piston there, and I reckon you can see the rings. So, that no good. We're going to have to do something about that. My concern is that that bit of piston missing doesn't necessarily explain why the water is getting into the cylinder, so there's probably something else going on there, which is going to be fun to figure out. For the minute though, I reckon I'm going to take off this cylinder head here and see if there's any issues down on any of this bank. These issues I reckon were caused by the engine leaning out. We've got a couple of indicators to that. Obviously the piston issue is one. You can see here on the head that this is rather clean, so something else has cleaned that up, which I'm guessing is the water that got into the cylinder. Then also that plug also had the telltale signs of being lean. Lastly, also the ECU was telling me when I checked it later on that the maximum duty cycle was reached for those injectors. So there's a couple of things there that we're going to have to fix up for the future, but for the minute I'm going to get this head off, see if we've got more issues than just the one cylinder. So I got the driver's side head off now. Doesn't seem to be any issues on this side. No marks from detonation or leaning out. Doesn't look like the head gasket was blown. What we're going to do now, front off, and then I reckon we're going to pull the engine out. I just need to get it on the hoist to do that. Dad's kind of got a boat there at the moment, so we might have to do this in 2 parts. Might do the front off today and then maybe the engine out in a week or so. Anyway, time to get to it. So front's off the car, got the radiator out the way. Unfortunately, the news is getting worse, not better. There's a crack in the bore that we've found now of that troublesome cylinder. So we're gonna have to completely pull apart the engine, disassemble it, and take it off to a machine shop for them to take a look at. Best case scenario is probably just re-sleeving that cylinder. Worst case is there's structural issues with the block, and we're gonna have to find a new block. So, bit of a kick in the guts, definitely not the weekend I wanted to have, but it's part of motorsport, it is what it is. We'll pull it apart, get it off to the machine shop and see what the go is. So new weekend, boat's off the hoist now, got Smokey up here, can take the exhaust off. Then tail shaft, gearbox, and finally pull this wounded engine out the car. Then I'm going to start to strip it down. Well, fast forward a month into the future and I ended up taking the engine out of Smokey off camera, giving it to the engine builder, and he's taken a look at it and it's definitely going to need to be re-sleeved like we thought. Problem is, re-sleeving an alloy block isn't so easy and it's going to require some welding, which is a bit hit and miss with alloy blocks. So we're going to get them to give that a crack. Hopefully it doesn't warp the block too bad and it's still usable. If not, I may need to go out and buy a new block, but don't really want to do that because all of the other clearances on the engine are all correct for that block and all the bits and pieces in it. So if I have to get another block, then we need to recheck the entire engine's clearances, and I don't really want to do that because that's a lot more money. The next thing on my list though, old 180 here, old reliable, but as you probably saw on the Foolish Line video, She's not running so crash hot now, if at all. If we look down here, I've got a few bits and pieces out the way. You might be able to see the hole just in there. The interesting thing about that is if I stick my finger through the hole, I can actually feel the crank, and I can feel where the rod should be but isn't. So the rod's gone somewhere. There's nothing attached to the actual crank where the rod should be though. So I suspect the piston is up the top of the head here, the rod is dangling from it, and the rod cap is somewhere in the sump. So that kind of supports my theory of the rod bolts failing. It explains why it had no rod knock previously and how it happened so suddenly, and obviously why none of the rod is actually connected to the crank anymore. So that one's half solved itself. We have had a fair few rod bolt failures recently, I've noticed, in drifting. So if you're pulling apart your engine, it might be worth putting some ARP hardware in it just to give yourself some insurance, because turns out these bolts get a bit old and they do start to crack, wear, and create issues like that. Looking further around the garage though, I guess I'll give you a bit of an update while you're in here. Coupes here, we've taken off to get a quote on all the rust repairs and a respray. That's come in at probably about the mid-teens, so don't really have that money up my sleeve at the moment. That's going to have to sort of be pushed off to the side till we can save that money up. Do want the car in my wedding though, so what I'm going to do for the minute is put the windows back in it and the skirts on it, chuck it on Rego for my wedding day, and get some of my groomsmen to drive the car out. Probably also get a different number plate. E30 is still running pretty good. Take it for a hills drive every now and then and don't really touch it other than oil changes. The Missile 32 is giving me a bit of a headache at the moment because it will not run above about 5,500 RPM, like you saw in the Foolish Line video also. So I need to spend some time on that. It may even need to go on a dyno to sort that one out. I think lastly, the other car that I've got is that hatch BMW that me and Joe half own. That still seems to run. We just need to come up with a better coolant tank for it. Otherwise, I reckon that's pretty much all the cars in my life. Most of them are broke or going to cost me a lot of money at the moment, which is pretty unfortunate. So you might not see too many videos for a while I try and rebuild my life and my fleet and make it so I can actually drive some cars again. So looking forward to 2022 DSA series, and I've got a livery that's coming for Smokey that I think is going to look pretty damn sick. So really wanting to show you guys that, but there's a long road to go to complete the design and also put it on the car and get the car actually running. So thanks for watching. This has been a very expensive damage report from my house here and up top of the hill, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.